There have been some recent announcements of NFL teams getting new uniforms this next season. So we are going to take a look at which remaining teams are in most dire need of a makeover. Welcome to the Jersey Score, the channel where we discuss all things related to sport team uniforms and logos. And if that's something you're interested in, please subscribe to the channel for more content. Also like the video, it helps us a lot. Now with the recent announcements in the NFL of both the Cardinals and the Panthers releasing new uniforms for this upcoming season, we thought this would be a perfect time to take a look at all the other teams that need to get with it. Now there are some teams, and we'll take a look at them, that will be releasing new alternate uniforms, throwbacks, but we're talking a full-on update to their primary home and away uniforms. And so what we're not going to do is consider any of the teams that have had an update within the last 5 or so years. So these are teams that are really beyond that are really due for an update. So with that, let's jump into it. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, it came as very welcome news when we learned that they would be releasing new uniforms for this upcoming season. Their current look just screams outdated. They've got that thin black piping and a weird white stripe under the armpit. And we know that these are already designed. They haven't released anything yet, but they're already designed. But we're really hoping they don't pull an LA Rams and try to reinvent something when they already have something perfectly good in their repertoire. They just need to look to the past and pull out some of these retro uniforms, and I think they've got the solution right there. So don't overthink it, and that is the case for these next few teams that we're going to look at. Next, let's take a look at the Detroit Lions. Now, they announced last year that they will be updating their uniform, so we know that that's already in the works. Fans, me included, hoped that that meant for this upcoming season. That is not the case. They will, however, be releasing a new alternate helmet, but there's no indication whether that helmet is going to be a preview of what their new uniform is going to be or whether it's something completely separate. Now, the Lions are ones that have not completely gone away from their traditional look, but they have modernized it here and there over the years. And so for me, I just think the answer is just scale it back and really go to the more simplified, older version, and you have your answer. Unfortunately, there has not been much said, but what they have said is that it's most likely going to be more updated than the tweaks that we've seen in the past. So I feel like we're going to see something that's really taking the uniform in a new direction, which doesn't really give me high hopes for what they're planning on doing. But the one bit of good news is that they do plan on keeping the traditional Lions colors, so that is a positive. Well, Eagles fans have something to celebrate. They will be bringing back the classic Kelly Green uniforms for this season. However, it'll only be as an alternate. Now, I'm sure that they will use fan reaction to these and jersey sales to gauge whether or not to make the switch permanent. And I think these things are perfect, but the only knock on these that I've heard from anybody is that they need to add the classic Eagle logo onto the shoulders. I kind of like it as they are with the numbers, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Then we have the Denver Broncos, and man, these uniforms were so cool once upon a time. I remember when they were released, and it was perfect timing because then they go on to win back-to-back Super Bowls, and they looked great. The problem is they really haven't updated much since then, and we think that they have another solution already existing. They just go a little further back in time, and they pull out these babies, and they're on their way. They have, however, announced that they will be wearing a new alternate helmet this year, and while they haven't shown it, they have released this picture indicating that it will be a white helmet. And they've never worn a white helmet before, so to me that doesn't look positive that they're going to go the way of the retro uniform, but I would love it if they did, but if they don't, hopefully they can still do something a little bit cleaner and more modern than what they're currently wearing. Lastly, for the throwback group, we have the Seahawks. Now, as I'm sure you can tell by now, I am a big fan of very clean and classic throwback uniforms. However, I remember when Seattle released these uniforms, and I actually really liked them for a long time. Now I look at them and I can't really see what the appeal was. And that's the problem, is that when you try to do something modern or trendy, that because trends come and go, it doesn't take long for your uniforms to look dated, which is why we feel like they should just go to their classic Seahawk uniforms. However, it feels like Nike really likes to use the Seahawks to be kind of, for their experimental uniforms, or really kind of their edgy and push new designs. So we'll see if they ever do go to the throwback, or if they continue to use the Seahawks as the Oregon Ducks of the NFL. Then we have the Carolina Panthers group. Now, these are teams that are a little bit newer. We're talking late 90s, early 2000s. And so they don't have the classic throwbacks to turn to. The problem is they've been wearing pretty much the same look since they came into the league. And while they were very cool looks at the time, they have since gone out of style. So they need rebrands to really refresh their look. I think a great example of how you can have something fresh and clean with that classic feel, but really have something new, is the LA Chargers. Now, these things are just so clean, and yet they're not really classic. They've got kind of a new spin to them. And so I think that these teams really should be looking to the Chargers as an example of kind of how you do a new look that feels fresh, but still has those clean elements to it. So one of the big problems here is that the Panthers just announced before I started recording that gave us this little sneak peek of what their release is going to be. And it's basically centered around having a new shade of blue, because apparently when they switched to, when Nike took over making the uniforms for the league, they didn't have the exact shade for the Panthers. And so they now have the Panther blue, and so they'll be switching to that, and they'll be changing the stripe around the shoulder. And from what I see there, I think that's definitely a good start. But if that's what the changes are limited to, I don't know if they've really gone far enough. So we'll just have to wait and see on this one. Then we have the Houston Texans. Now, there's nothing totally egregious about these uniforms. I think the most dated things are the shape of the stripe on the shoulders, as well as that piping near the collarbone. But other than that, these things are fine. It's just that they're a bit boring. And with the franchise at a point where it's looking to start a new chapter, I think now would be the perfect time for them to release a new, fresher look. Lastly, we have the Baltimore Ravens. These things haven't changed almost at all over the years. I mean, look how young Ray Lewis looks here. He hadn't even killed anybody at this point, probably. And now I've always felt that the Ravens have had a very cool aesthetic. The problem is it's also a bit busy. For starters, you see that they have 5 colors on there, primarily purple and black, but then also white, that's fine, but then yellow and even a little bit of red in the logo, in the eye of the Raven on the logo, as well as on the patch. And that's the other thing, trying to incorporate the very busy Maryland state flag, I know they're very proud of it, on your uniform just adds a bit more clutter. So I think they could really benefit from a simplified version of what they already have, maybe cleaner, more basic number font and not so much drop shadow on it, and really taking off some of the clutter and minimizing the colors. And I think they would have a very solid look. And I think it'd be perfect timing, especially if they move off of Lamar Jackson, that this would be a new chapter and time to start fresh. Well, there you have it. Those are the NFL teams that we would like to see get updated looks and new threads. So let us know in the comments, what teams would you like to see get updated uniforms, and what changes would you like to see them make? Let us know, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.